Good afternoon and welcome to GPP. I am your co-president, Anissa Bray, along with Trish Taylor, and we truly appreciate everyone that's joining us today for today's topic of diversity in Georgia's film industry. This is a pre-recorded session and there will be no questions answered during the stream. I'm going to shoot it over to Trish to tell you more about GPP and introduce you as a board.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Anissa. I appreciate that. Yeah, GPP, Georgia Production Partnership, is a coalition of companies and individuals who are top in their craft for the film, television, and digital entertainment here in the state of Georgia. We are a nonprofit lobbying organization, and all of our membership dues and our fundraisers go towards our lobbying efforts. We also support the state film office and a lot of film festivals around the state of Georgia. We also, our main mission is to keep the state tax incentive in place. And we kind of do everything around that. We have an all volunteer board, and a lot of hardworking people behind the scenes put a lot of effort into programs like this and the panel that's coming up. And we just want to take a moment to flash our screen there to show you a little bit about who all is working on our board and all the great efforts that they do here today. And that's a little bit about GPP and what we do. Anissa, I'm going to toss it back to you to continue with our program.
All right. Well, thank you, Trish. As she said, we're a membership organization and we provide the up-to-date information about the film industry here. So if you are a member, welcome back. And for our visitors, pre-COVID, we used to charge $20 donation for our meetings. But in these trying times, we ask that you just donate what you can. $5 can go a long way in this, in supporting our industry and this organization. So just donate what you can, if you can. We have some quick reports. I'll introduce our first reporter, which is Lee Thomas from the Georgia Film Office.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Still in that kind of fluid time where, we have some information on projects. We're not sure exactly when people are starting. Everybody's still very tenuous, but here's what we know. In prep, we have Black Adam. We have an indie Dakota. We have in prep Home Safe, another indie. Ozark season 4 is prepping now. Red Notice is returning to the state prepping. We have Serenity Now prepping, the Go Big Show, which is a reality show. The Oval season 2 for Tyler Perry is prepping. In production, we have a lot of reality. So we have 1,000 Pound Sisters, Dead Silent season 4, Dish Nation season 8, Divorce Court, Double Kidnapped. We have some series, Dwight in Shining Armor is in production right now. Also, the TV movie Don't Waste Your Pretty, an indie feature Extortion, TV reality show Jeff's Treasure Hunt with Jeff Foxworthy, TV reality Little Women, that is Atlanta season 6, Mama June season 5, Married to Medicine, and Meet the Flockas. So, the questions that we're getting most are about testing, and what we're finding, we're trying to find enough testing facilities for all the shows that are wanting to come in, and a bandwidth for the labs. What we hear a lot of times is these labs are being used by the Department of Public Health, and so they're needing to go outside of the state to get labs and/or testing. So that has become a little bit of a challenge, but we keep on finding more. And as you know, we put out some guidelines, best practices before, and those have a great resource for PPE for incoming shows. And to talk about the protocols, I'm going to add in Mike Aikens, the BA of IA 479, who can tell you really what's happening, the nuts and bolts of the unions. Mike?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lee. Very slow progress is being made with the AMPTP, and the unions and getting a standard package out. All of these productions have protocols. They're following the standards across the board. But right now, the majority of the negotiations are going on between the AMPTP and the unions to come up with a standard protocol policy that everyone's going to follow. Right now, the majority of them are all standard. They're testing, they're practicing social distancing, PPE, sanitizing. Most of these are all following those same guidelines. It does vary a little bit between the number of tests per week and depending upon the zones that are going on there. I believe that these negotiations are going to hopefully come to a conclusion sometime this week or early next week. And at that point, we'll have a standard policy for protocols that we can implement across the board. I think we're close. I think everybody is practicing good protocol. They are being safe. I think the industry as a whole wants to get back to work. And I certainly think that by Lee's report, there's a lot of interest in getting started here. And these protocols should come in place within the next week and a half or so.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Mike. Next, we'll have a report from our government relations, Peter Stathopoulos.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It'll be kind of short, but if everybody will remember, this year GPP supported legislation, House Bill 1037, which was intended to basically tighten up some components of Georgia's film tax credit program in response to some recommendations made by a state audit of the program earlier in the year. Overall, it was a successful legislative session. The industry still enjoys broad support, political support. There were some calls from a few legislators to have more restrictive provisions inserted into this legislation, but ultimately those were unsuccessful. So, you know, the good news is HB 1037, we think is a good bill. What it primarily does is require that over a 2-year period that there be a phase-in of a required mandatory state audit of productions, and that audit can involve an outside CPA firm to prevent the process from bogging down. I'm on the committee along with various others in the industry that is advising the Georgia Department of Revenue and helping to come up with what those outside CPA audit procedures will look like. And I understand that the governor will be signing that bill tomorrow. So that's all I had to report. Thank you. Anissa, back to you.
Thank you, Peter. Next, we have a report from Kimberly Raybon in membership.
Hey, thanks, Anissa. Hope everybody is well. As we announced last month for membership, the GPP has a call to action. And as our co-president Trish explained, we are very avid about protecting the tax credits in the state of Georgia. And in order for us to continue our mission, we need your help. So right now we're asking that all members who can renew their membership, please do. And if you're a part of Georgia's entertainment industry, we invite you to join us. Now through the end of August, everyone receives a 20% discount for student, individual, associate, and corporate level memberships. So if you're interested, please make sure that you go to our website at georgiaproduction.org, press the join button, or go to our support page. If there are any members who want to know about your membership status, please make sure to email us at membership@georgiaproduction.org. Everyone continue to stay safe and stay Georgia strong. All right, Anissa, back to you.
Thank you, Kim. So we want to thank everybody for those reports. We're going to quickly move on to our panel. And in essence of times, our moderator today is Lisa Farrell. She was our former co-president and also a producer and project manager for CMII at Georgia State University. I'm pleased to introduce Lisa Farrell. Take it away.
Thank you, Anissa. And I also want to thank everybody for joining us for today's panel. It's a a very topical subject. It is Diversity in Georgia's Film Industry, a Snapshot in Time or Real Change. But because of the people that we have on our panel who are heavy hitters, we won't just be talking exclusively about the local film industry. So, and as I mentioned to them, in today's climate of Me Too, Oscar So White, Time's Up, this is the perfect time to have this panel and have more of a conversation about what's going on in the industry. So I will introduce our panelists, and then I'll come back and I'll allow them to give like a brief bio of themselves. So today, first we have Sherry Day, a camera operator, Susan Satterfield, managing partner for Picture Window Productions, Tiana Jackson, agent CEO of the Jackson Agency, Rob Hardy, director producer, Rainforest Entertainment, and Long Tran, a local Asian American filmmaker. So first, let's start with Rob. Rob, if you could just say a bit about your background for our group.
Sure. How you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Rob.
Good to see you too. My name is Rob Hardy, and I'm a local filmmaker, director, and producer, and have a company called Rainforest Entertainment. And many years ago, myself and my business partner at the time, Will Packer, did a lot of films here, from The Gospel to Twa to Stomp the Yard to No Good Deed. And so since then, I've been doing a lot in television, a lot of directing, and we produced a series here called The Quad, which ran for 2 seasons on BET, and we shot out of the AUC. And most importantly, we have a program called the Amazing Stories Foundation, where we train people from Atlanta, particularly people from underserved communities, to be PAs on film and TV sets. So super, super excited about that.
Great. Thank you so much. Susan, could you introduce yourself to our group?
Hello there. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Susan.
Good to see you.
Yes.
I am a writer, producer, content creator. My company, Picture Window Productions, has created and produced several reality shows and some docs, and we're currently working on some scripted projects. I'm also the vice chair of the Producers Guild Atlanta chapter, and a co-founder of the Women in Production Summit. And our mission at the summit is to make Georgia the most woman-friendly and inclusive media market in the country. So we're excited to be on the panel.
Thank you so much. And next, Tiana Jackson, if you could introduce yourself to the group, please.
Hello, my name is Tiana Jackson. I am a talent and literary agent. I built my agency from the ground up over 6 years ago. Last year, I was in the New York Times, and we specialize in talent development. I've taken brand new artists and gotten them co-stars and guest stars on TV shows and supporting roles in feature film.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Long Tran.
Hello, Long Tran. Feel very honored to be among all these influential people. Local filmmaker. I've had a few of my short films be in the Atlanta Film Festival. Last year's 100 Feet of Film from Kodak, we won the audience selection with a film called Dated. And for the last 5 years, it's been my mission and goal to help 8 rising Asian American artists show their skills in front of and behind the camera.
Thank you. That's amazing. I want to just jump right in, and I want to get started. I'm going to ask Rob this question, but I'd like for all of you to answer in turn, and I'll call on you so we don't talk and step on each other. I'm so sorry. Did I miss you, Sherry? I did. Please excuse me. I didn't see your.
No problem. That's why I turned on my screen.
Thank you for doing that. Sherry Day, camera operator. And before you speak, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to have you here, to be someone where women in a department, women are not so well represented. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Well, my name is Sherry Day, and actually I'm more of a camera assistant, aspiring operator. I've worked on commercials, documentaries, features. I pretty much work on anything in the Atlanta area. So, and I've been in the industry for just a little over 7 years.
Very good. Thank you so much. So again, I just want to hop right on in, and I'm going to ask you all in turn so we don't step on each other, but I'll start with Rob. Rob, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? What is your definition of that?
Diversity and inclusion for me means giving people access, you know, especially people that don't necessarily get a chance to be represented. So when I look around, especially when I see people that are, you know, whether it is, you know, Black and brown people, whether it is, you know, women, you know, et cetera, I think it's a matter of creating opportunities for people to have access to our industry, and also giving them support so then that way they get a chance to excel in the industry and the training that they need to survive here. So I think that the message needs to be across the board that our industry is for everybody and as diverse as an area as Atlanta is. I think that our crews, both above and below the line, should reflect the diversity that's in our city.
Thank you. Susan, do you want to expound on that?
It's hard to expound because Rob just pretty much covered the whole thing, but I will say that, you know, I think it's important for people to understand that diversity and inclusion is not charity work. It is, it makes productions and companies stronger, and it makes them more profitable. So, you know, I think that's one of the most important things that we need to convey, and especially for producers and people who are putting projects together to understand it's not just because it's the right thing to do, although it is. It also gives you a stronger company and a stronger product.
Thank you. Tiana, I'm going to come to you and ask you the same question. What does it mean to you? What's your definition?
Well, for us, as a Black woman, I always wanted a roster of diverse people because that's the world that I live in. And so we're dealing with a time where the climate is changing, but for me, it's about basic human decency, right? The United States is not all Caucasian, therefore the stories that Hollywood produces should be more inclusive. But now we have consumers and artists who are being more vocal about what they would like to see on their screens. And since this is a business, a continued lack of inclusion and equity in the entertainment business may result in revenue losses.
Long, I'm going to give you the same question, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit, because a lot of times when people talk diversity, especially when they're talking ethnically, they're talking Black and white. But tell me, as an Asian American filmmaker, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? What do you see?
So diversity means having as many voices and opinions and cultures at the table as much as possible. And it's not the breadcrumbs, it's not having the token positions. That's where inclusivity comes in. It's allowing voices to be heard, ideals to be heard from different perspectives, different angles, especially culturally and from the various communities. And so, you know, whether it's a panel like this or it's the writer's room, you can't write a story about a cultural experience if none of the writers have gone through that experience, whether it's as an African American or an Asian American. And so that inclusivity means having a voice at the table.
Thank you. Sherry?
Well, everybody pretty much summed up what I was going to say.
Well, then let me give it to you in a different way. You're in a department that is not usually considered a diverse department. what would it mean to you, or what does it mean to you to see the different departments become more inclusive and diverse?
Well, for me, because normally when I do work on a show, I am the only female or the only Black person in the camera department. So I always feel a little bit alone, or not as much represented in my industry. For me, it would mean more cohesiveness. It would mean that would make the camera department stronger to see more women empowered in this industry. Because when I first came in, I had no idea what to expect. But the longer I've stayed in the industry, the more I realized it's such a male-dominated industry. And for me to get a job, it means that they check two boxes. I'm not just hired just because, I mean, I'm good at what I do, but I'm hired because I'm a female and I'm Black. So I think it would be really good to see more women, just more women, you know, doing camera work. You know, there's a lot of us who are interested in this industry, and it's just we don't always have the opportunity to join the union, the money to join the union, and I think it's about facilitating, helping more women and more Black women especially have their voices heard.
I love that answer. I'm going to just follow up with you and stay with that for a minute.
Mhm.
What made you want to get into a department that you did not, where you would be one of the only ones, or feel not as well? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but feel as though you don't have that support system around you.
Well, when I first came into the industry, I didn't know there were no Black women, that there weren't very many Black women. It was my dream to make films. I minored in photography and I majored in journalism. So I wanted to tell a story, but I wanted to do something more compelling than just writing. So I figured adding words and imagery together is filmmaking. So I jumped in, you know, with no idea of what I was getting myself into. So I feel like it's been a process to kind of absorb what it means to be Black in the film industry. Most people are really surprised to see that I work in the camera department. You know, one of my first shows, I jumped on the camera truck and the drivers looked at me like, "Excuse me, who are you?" And I said, "I'm your AC." He says, "I've never seen one in my 30 years of driving camera trucks." So that was kind of like, okay, food for thought. But since then, I've seen a few more of us starting to make that climb into the industry, so it gives me hope. But what really made me stick with it is because I want to show the people coming up after me that it's possible, that, you know, I'm here too. Our voices can be heard too.
Rob, I'm going to follow up with you and kind of piggyback off of what Sherry just said. I'd love to know, what was it that prompted you to start your own production company? And with her saying that, you know, she didn't see that many people like her working, I'm wondering, was that part of what drove you?
Well, what drove us at the time was that we were aspiring filmmakers and we didn't know anybody in the industry. So, you know, when we were in college at Florida A&M University, we founded our company behind doing a movie called Chocolate City that we put out. So we came to Atlanta as two guys looking to get in, and, you know, did, you know, a bunch of years PAing on sets and met a bunch of people. Back then it was music videos, but because we had our own company, we got a chance to develop projects for ourselves, and we got a chance to hire people. And so our sets were always super diverse because that was just, you know, we hired everybody. That was kind of what we knew. And we had a program at the time that we were doing with Clark Atlanta, where we were getting students to come in and apprentice for us. It didn't seem different, and that was the way that I knew. It wasn't different until I started doing TV. And then when I started doing TV and they weren't rainforest sets, you know, there might be sets where there were very few people that were of color, or there may be a lot less women on those shows. And it might just be me as the only Black guy. And I love people, I got along with everybody, but it just was a very different look and feel than when we were doing our movies. So, you know, I've always seen that as something that's really important. And especially the fact that since film is such a huge industry in our state, I think that everybody needs to be able to have access to it and to be able to participate in it.
I want to come to you, Susan. You said something earlier about it not being diversity and inclusion not being a handout, but good business. Could you elaborate on that? Tell me how is diversity and inclusion beneficial to the bottom line?
I think it's multiple ways. I mean, this is not my opinion. It's, you know, there's companies that have done studies like McKinsey and Company, and they've shown it not just for, you know, our industry, but across the board. When you diversify your board, bringing in different perspectives can be more creative, can help a company understand more of their audience or their potential clientele better, and basically just gives you a broader view that can make you stronger and keep you from making cultural mistakes as well. I mean, it's, you know, in our industry in particular, you know, we've all suffered from stereotypes, you know, that especially in the past, there's been, you know, incredibly offensive stereotypes for women, for Black people, for Asian people, for all minorities, and for Southerners in general. You know, it just can be extremely offensive. So I think that not only does it broaden your audience when you show more depth and more perspective in the people that you cast, but also the crew that you have around you will keep you from making mistakes, will keep it 100% and keep you true.
I want to piggyback off of that and go to Tiana and to Long, both of you. First, Tiana, Susan just said that you having the diversity helps you from making the mistakes and to help you keep you culturally accurate. Tell me, with the current environment, are you finding any differences in getting your talent in front of people to see, or was it never an issue? Or tell me how that's going for you.
During quarantine, I would say we started to see some changes, especially after the death of George Floyd. Diversity and inclusion had already been an initiative, but we didn't quite always see the changes, especially in the breakdowns, meaning the casting notices that we were receiving. We were still receiving notices that were not looking for diversity. So I have noticed since we've been under quarantine that we have had an extreme upspike in our artists of color getting more opportunities, yes.
And Long, for you, I know that not only do you make films, but you happen to be to work on like dialect and that sort of thing. Could you tell me how you're being an Asian American filmmaker, how it fully encompasses each part of making sure that a film is culturally accurate?
Absolutely. Aside from just being a filmmaker, one of my primary jobs is working in the IT industry, mobile app development, and we've seen streaming platforms, which, you know, all of the social medias have content created by individuals. And that's where, when I created my first short film, it's where I recruited my talent. If you told me to find an Asian American female DP, I couldn't find one through my contacts. I had to go and watch YouTube and see, oh, this video is great, here's a local, and she's Asian American female. Great, I reached out and recruited her for our first short film. But this streaming content on social media has changed demographics. And so for the industry as a whole, you can't create content the way you used to and just throw out any accent that's not specific to Korean, Vietnamese, or Chinese and get away with it anymore. There's too much competing content on YouTube to get away with that. So I was asked to serve as a dialect coach on Watchmen to make sure that the Vietnamese accent is correct. And not just as an overall accent, but within the region that they were portraying the Vietnamese characters, what city they were in, Saigon, in Vietnam. And this is very important because this is the future. The industry has microeconomics, that content is created and advertising is directed towards that content. So if a content creator, an influencer, creates content that creates advertising that is very effective to that demographic, then the large industry has to be just as effective. So when they create a broader, say, film like Avengers Endgame, they have to make sure that they incorporate facets of the micro content so that it appeals to everyone. And that's where the economics is going to drive the industry.
Thank you. Rob, I wanted to come back to you. You've been making film and TV for a while, and you've worked on both projects that were diverse and that, you know, maybe a little bit more homogenized. Can you talk a little bit about your journey through the industry and how you got to be able to be where you are?
For us, it was myself and Will Packer were independent guys that created a production company so we could make projects. And while we were the starving artists, we wrote and produced our own material. We out of Atlanta, or out of Jonesboro specifically. And we raised money, we four-walled a couple of movies, starting with Twa and Pandora's Box. We pulled a lot from people that we knew in the music video world, and the crews got bigger and bigger. And then we got a deal with Columbia TriStar. So that started us making movies for Sony, which got bigger and bigger, and we were shooting a lot of movies here. So there was, it was an amazing time to be here. The independent scene was really big, and we transitioned over to, you know, bigger feature projects. And then as we kept doing that, I got an opportunity to apprentice on ER, which at the time was, you know, a big show, and that opened the door for me to do television. So it was an interesting period because at that time, all of my TV experience was in Hollywood, which, you know, all of my movie experience was in Atlanta. And then eventually I started doing TV shows here, like Being Mary Jane, The Game, and then eventually Vampire Diaries, originals, things of that nature. So just watching this area grow a lot has been amazing. And then it's given me the opportunity to do pilots and to help set up shows here. So the Quad, again, you know, 10 years after we did Stomp the Yard, we got a chance to shoot that here, hire a lot of local people. There's some other projects that we're developing that we want to be able to bring to Georgia and hire people. So for us, because I live here, I love the state, I love the city. So I want to stay home. We want to put Georgians to work. You know, we want to be able to create stories that we can do here. And we want to create a pipeline where if you're from here, you can go get a job and have a career. And there are amazing, you know, unions and partnerships that are here that can help make that happen. And we want to be a part of that. And that's just kind of who we are. And we want to continue to push that.
Do you find it is getting easier or not for you, not just you, but for any other marginalized group to be able to get a foothold into the industry?
You know, I think that there are a lot of programs that are out there, but the question is that what programs actually help you get a job? You know what I'm saying? I think that that's what's important. Like a lot of people just need an opportunity and access. So, you know, that's the question is there a real opportunity there? Is there training? Is there somebody that can help you get a job at the end of the day? Because that's when it becomes real. It's real when, you know, and our organization was based in East Point. So it's real when you're in East Point and people there get a chance to get a job, and then other people around them see, oh my gosh, that's real. because you went on to get a job and you now have a career, you know, as, you know, in grip and electric, or as a camera operator or production design, whatever it is. So now all of a sudden that becomes like a viable thing for people in our communities that are very different from somebody going off and producing a project, because everybody's not built for that. Everybody's not doesn't have the gift of writing or directing or acting. But a lot of people are hard workers and are smart and creative enough to be able to do something cool on a set. So we want to help them do that.
Thank you. I want to go to Susan. Susan, by being an officer in Producers Guild, and I'm sure you get access to a lot of information. You have a bigger, broader outlook. What is the outlook right now for different marginalized groups in the industry?
I think the first step in correcting anything is to recognize how much of a problem you have and to be able to quantify it and start to address real systems to make change. So I think that's what stage we're in. I mean, a lot of us have known that we have a problem in our industry for a while, but I think that we've awakened a lot of other people to that with Me Too, with Oscar So White, with people just speaking out and saying, you know, no more, this has to change. So I think, you know, there are a lot of programs now that are coming out, as Rob mentioned. Not having been through these different programs, it's hard to say. I think we're at a point where now we're looking at all these different programs and initiatives and looking at what is working, what is actually moving people through the system, what's giving them access to all the things that they need. There is a new resource that I'm pretty excited about, and if you guys may know Deborah Riley Draper with Coffee Bluff Pictures, she's actually using it now. It's called Arts to Work, and Arts to Work program is the first ever federally registered national apprenticeship program in media arts and the creative technologies. So it is helping companies and producers and people with projects to actually use federal funds to hire an apprentice. This is not an unpaid internship. We know that a lot of people can't afford to take unpaid internships. This is a program that pays apprentices, and Deborah Riley Draper was able to move somebody from a part-time to a full-time job in her company. So I'm going to make sure that we have the link to this so that people can check it out for themselves. I've got a call tomorrow to find out more. But those kind of programs where you can actually pay someone to, or the federal government gives you funds to pay someone that you can put to work in your company and teach them, I think we definitely need more of those kinds of programs.
I love that. Once you get that information, if you can send it on to us, we can make sure that it's broadcast with a GPP membership.
Will do.
Tiana, I wanted to come back to you and ask you, do you deal primarily with just in front of the camera? And if so, when your talent is on set and they're working, is there a huge dichotomy between what's in front of the camera and what's behind the camera?
So I represent pretty much a little bit of everything. I have actors, I have writers, producers, directors, and what have you, makeup artists, etc. So when it comes to on-camera talent, what do you mean by, is there a difference between in front and behind?
Like if you've got your talent, your actors in front of the camera, but then when you look out on the set, you see the DP, the grip, the PAs. Are they more homogenized than the talent that you've brought on?
No. That's the short answer. No. No, they're not.
Very good. Long, I have a question for you that someone sent. I want to know, do you see a problem in the Asian community with wrongly casting roles, such as a Korean actor cast as an actor from China?
Yes, that is definitely an issue in our community, and it's so multi-leveled. You know, the easiest answer that people always talk about is there's not enough talent. There's not enough Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese actors. So we have to default to the Asian actor that looks closest to that. There's a little bit of truth to that. But from, say, an agent's standpoint, Asian actors aren't cast very often. There's not very many roles for us. So the time for an agent to put in to understand the difference between a Korean actor or actress and a Chinese actor or actress and how different that dialect is may not be worth an agent's time. And they'll just send someone hoping it sticks to the wall, and they'll focus on their larger clients that make them more money. And then that just leads into the industry, whether it's a commercial, you know, at some point they'll decide, okay, we'll just voice over that person, or we'll just outright change the character from Chinese to Korean or Korean to Japanese. It's definitely an issue at all levels, and this problem is going to expand here in the US. In Atlanta, we have to, I like to use the term, think globally, but you act locally. We have to develop our talent and our resources here because film is becoming more competitive globally. Korea's churning out much better movies. China's churning out much better movies. I was in Serbia last summer working on a movie set, and the city of Belgrade in Serbia is doing everything they can to convince the British film studios to start filming in their city. And so on a global perspective, there's going to be a lot more competition. And so our talent here has to rise up to that competition, both in front of and behind the camera, so that we can keep the work here in Atlanta.
That kind of goes back to what Rob was saying about the different programs and things that are available right now. If we want to, you know, compete, we would need to take advantage of those. How would someone find out what's available for them in order to sharpen their skills? And anyone can answer that. Anybody?
I mean, for me, I recognize, because I created my agency because I was unemployable, right? I had a serious barrier to entry to where I could not get employment at any agency. And so I started my own. And 6 years later, here we are. So I'm a living embodiment of the barriers to entry in entertainment when it comes to qualified African Americans in the workplace. I'm someone who has a very impressive background working for over 10 years for billionaires doing their accounting, having gone to UCLA for producing and screenwriting. So there's no question that I could do something as simple as sell a human being to a director to, you know, say a few lines. And so what we did was we started the Black Talent Agent Training Academy, because we're at that point now where you're starting to see more talent being vocal about the fact that they would like to have an agent that looks like them, or would just like to see more people that look like them when they stop by their agent's office. And so we're responding to that. I'm responding to it personally by creating that program, which is completely free. And it's hands-on training where you get to work with me 3 days a week for a few hours, so you get the skill of aging. We're not doing this mailroom nonsense where you're a slave working all day. I am training agents.
That is extremely exciting. How would, do you have information? How would someone find out about your training program?
Yeah, I had mainly put the word out through social media a few weeks ago. We had an orientation, and then I had a few people interested. And one of the gentlemen right now, this is week 4 for him, where he's been learning our day-to-day. So anyone who's interested can always send me an email with your resume, and then we'll have another orientation for the next class, and then we'll try again in the fall.
I'm going to, I'm at Georgia State, and I have students, and I'm also over the internship portion of it, they're going to be very excited for me to give them your email address, Tiana. So thank you so much. I wanted to ask Sherry, because you told us, like, when you first started, you know, you were usually the only person. I want to know what kept you going? What kept you wanting to pursue? What helped you to I don't know, to keep pushing through?
Because it's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a place for myself, and I wanted to show other people that look like me that there's a place for us in this industry, and that's what keeps me going. And I would advise any women of color who are interested in pursuing a career in the camera department to reach out to their local rental houses, to find small productions to work on, to learn the gear, because as Long said, we're becoming more competitive. And so the more you know and the more hands-on experience you have, the more competitive you're going to be coming into the industry. And that we're at a time right now where we're starting to have the conversation. When I came into the camera department, it was more of a whisper. So I think that as more people of color voice their perspectives about how they want to be part of it, then there'll be more opportunity, and we need to take advantage of those opportunities. And if they want to reach out to me and find out more step-by-step stuff of how you can really get hands-on and how you can get known in the industry, then please feel free to reach out.
Did you get your training here locally?
Yes, I actually interned at a camera rental house, which led to me having a job at a camera rental house. And that way I was able to learn all the equipment. I was able to meet all the camera assistants, and that helped me out a lot. And that came from when I was on set as a PA. So even if you can get on set as a PA and become an understudy of some camera operator, and they can kind of bring you into their fold. So, I mean, there's a myriad of different ways to get into the industry, and you just have to kind of search them out. But I would say the local rental houses, the smaller film sets, so that you can really get your hands on the gear and learn on set protocol and how things work, then that would be my advice on the best way to go.
That's excellent advice. Thank you so much. You're somebody else. I'm going to share your contact information with my students.
Sure, feel free.
Okay. Susan, I wanted to talk to you about the film This Changes Everything that PGA showed. And it was, you know, every time something happens or comes out, it's like, oh, this is going to change everything for these people in the industry. And it's, you know, excited and talked about for, I don't know, and then it just kind of like loses its momentum. What, for equality and inclusion, number one, what do you see it would take for it to keep its momentum going? And two, do you see this as a flash in the pan or a movement or a moment?
I think let us not have this be a flash in the pan. I mean, I think that we're coming to a point that it hasn't been as, it may feel sudden for some people, but it hasn't been. It's been building. And it's a confluence of a lot of different things. The fact that our country is struggling with so many things right now, the horrific footage of George Floyd, the horrific revelations of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, all of the different things that have come out. And I think people's willingness to just stand up and say, enough is enough, things have to change. I think, and you know, now with the pandemic, we are also able to, we have inadvertently sometimes extra time on our hands where we haven't been able to work as much. You know, I've been urging my white friends to educate themselves more. You know, I think we all need to educate ourselves more, particularly people who have had a lot of advantage and entitlement, you know, and read White Fragility, you know, listen to the podcast 1619, and there's lots of great resources for people to understand that the history we've been taught, the systems that we have are the result of a lot of unfair advantages, and we need to understand that we're not going to get to a better place unless we address those things. I don't think people are going to turn back. You know, I certainly no one that I know is interested in turning back and going back to the way things were. So let us hope.
I love that. Tiana, I'm going to ask each of you in turn to pretty much answer the same question. Where do you see this moment, and where do you see it going from here? Tiana, I'm going to start with you. Do you see this as something that will last, or a flash in the pan, and what do we need to do to keep this momentum going?
It remains to be seen, because at first consumers, when they started the hashtag Oscars So White, it made a few changes in front of the camera, right? We got maybe 1 or 2 more movies. They gave us Crazy Rich Asians, right, for the year, and they thought that solved the problem, but it really didn't. And so it really remains to be seen as to whether or not there will be true change, because ultimately, what we're getting fed are just more actors coming from the same big powerhouse agencies, but we're not really getting diversity and inclusion permeating through the industry, meaning we're not doing business with the other agencies that are out there. And then now, because we have writers speaking up, we're starting to get directors speaking up, we're starting to get crew members speaking up about some of their experiences on set, we might see some changes. But at the same time, we're also being told, well, we can't really find anyone. And you can look at it in the history. When they first said, well, hey, we need to diversify our writers' rooms, what happened? They came back and said, well, we can't find any writers of color. There aren't any, right? So then Lena Waithe's group had to literally schedule a photo shoot of 62 Black women saying, here we are, we're right here. And so I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with the various departments inside of IOPSI. You've created this massive demand overnight, but you've continually had a culture that prevented diversity to begin with. So how do you fix that culture? And then secondary to that, how do you create a training program to start bringing in more diversity and get these guys caught up to speed very quickly so that you can insert them on set? The biggest issue that I hear from anyone, whether it's agent executives looking to hire diverse people, whether it's producers, what have you, is that we can't find anyone. And so what needs to happen right now is we need to dump some serious money into training the next group of vocational laborers. So that way, when we are back on set full time, we have more diverse crews. We have better cultural training. We have racial bias training. And that's something that I've been working on with the Association of Talent Agents. I'm the co-chair of the Racial Equality Task Force. And we held racial anti-bias training about 2 weeks ago at this point. So that way our member agencies could be more aware of maybe some things that they were saying or doing that were microaggressions that they just thought were normal behaviors. So it's not about just integrating your crew immediately overnight. You're going to have problems. You have to start addressing the mindset and the culture of the workplace as well.
What you said just reminded me of the Project Greenlight with Matt Damon saying that, you know, well, diversity is important in front of the camera. Don't worry about it being behind the camera. Everything you just said just touched on that, and the historic, traditional systemic barriers that are built into the system that, you know, keep people out, whether or not that was their intention or not. So, Long, I'm going to ask you to speak on the same question. Where do we go from here? Do you think that this is lasting or just a moment?
I think just by the nature of the industry shifting to multiple streaming platforms, where globally content is much more readily available and easily accessible. This is a long-term, this is a permanent shift in the industry to be more inclusive, to tell better stories, tell more diverse stories. If Hollywood as a whole doesn't do it, someone else across the world is going to do it, or someone in their bedroom is going to figure out a way to do it. And as viewers, watchers, we're much more sophisticated in what we're consuming now. I know I am enjoying a much more diverse selection of movies and stories, whether it's from books to television shows or stuff that's showing up on TikTok. And so just how we consume media is very different, and it's going to continue to change. And so it's definitely a lasting change, and hopefully Hollywood keeps up with it and takes all of our opinions.
Okay, y'all, we're running out of time. I've got 3 minutes before they're gonna hustle us out of here. So I'm going to speak with both Sherry and Rob in the same question, and we can make this more of the conversation. So what do you two see, anything that will make this be a lasting thing, or how will we not miss our thought?
Go first.
Sherry,
Okay. Yeah, I think like Tiana said, there needs to be a lot of effort, a lot of money and influence put into training first, and also a lot of pressure put on our department heads because it starts at the top. So there needs to be better hiring practices, more of an effort to find that diversity. And we're coming up with a lot of directories and lists for Black artists, but how are we going to make sure that our department heads are looking at those lists? So it needs to be also combined, I think, with the union putting in an effort as well to make sure that these lists are available on their websites.
very good. And I don't mean to rush you, but we have come to the end of our time. And I want to thank Susan, Tiana, Long, Sherry, Rob. Thank y'all so much for having such a thoughtful conversation. And hopefully this is not the end. We will keep talking about this and keeping it on the front burner. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So,
happy to be a part of this.
Thank you. Back to Anissa.
Thank you, guys. That was a wonderful panel discussion. I want to thank the panel from the whole entire board, as well as our members. We look forward to future partnerships with Rob Hardy's Amazing Stories Foundation. We'll have all of this information for you on the Georgia Production Partnership website. Thank you, Lisa, for leading this panel. And we appreciate everyone for showing up. Thank you in advance for your donations and your memberships. Everyone stays healthy and safe, and enjoy the rest of your month. Goodbye from GPP.